Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to my living room. My name, if this is your first time tuning in, is Lana Labonte. But that's just a name. And I like my name. So I am here to inspire you to be the best version of you you're meant to be, specifically through life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Welcome, 4th of July. Happy Independence Day to the United States of America. Not to be confused with a corporation that we've been under since, what, 1871 or something like that. And that we have lost sight of and forgotten the true history that reveals that Independence Day was all about stand up and say, we're not putting up with this bullshit. Funny enough, we're shooting off fireworks, which are like bombs, but that's only symbolic and not actually representative of the real situation. Now, is it? Just saying. So, what am I really here to do? I actually want to activate the supreme power in you to reign in your life, to be the king or the queen, or the emperor or the empress, whatever it is that you feel within you that is true to you. I am also here because ultimately, I have a whole list of things to talk about. And I believe in the power of community because I am here to facilitate your intuitive knowing and gnosis. What does that mean? It means that most of us have numbed out of our true connection to source, which is within you. And also because it's an embodiment. It's a being present. It's not trying to escape the physical life. I mean, it's really, when you look out in the world, whatever you see is a reflection of whatever is going on within you. And it's easier to see the humdum, I don't like this, this is horrible. If there is a trigger out there, that is an indicator of what you need to do with the work in you. So welcome, Gaining Wisdom. Hope you're having a fabulous day. I've been so busy. I have one thing I want to share that is extremely near and dear to my heart, and it is a testament of prayer. So I was on a ceremony journey in Costa Rica with dear friends, and I made a prayer to my ancestors. I haven't seen my sister, my middle sister, since my mother passed away back in 2018. So I asked my ancestors to please bring my sister home. I knew she was alive because I have a connection with her. I did not feel anything like something was wrong or that she was no longer with us. On Father's Day, my dad received a phone call. And guess who that was? That was within less than 2 weeks. So if you ever want to pray to anyone, pray to those who are in your lineage. Because we are here to heal the lines of our family, our lineage, the ancestral trauma. We're here to bring ourselves back to wholeness. We're not here to struggle and suffer in this humdrum, oh my gosh, the world, the reality. It's not real, by the way. Because what people will say to you, they'll say, oh, you're not being realistic. You're not looking at what's really happening. I'm sorry, I choose not to subject myself to things that don't align with my heart and soul. And that's how I see it personally. And it took me a lot of years to get to that place because I was also one of those people that could find what was wrong with the situation. I could see the bad things happening in the world all around me. Oh my gosh, Henny Penny, the sky is falling, 1984. Remember George Orwell? Why? Because as we're about to discuss, many of us were raised and indoctrinated into an education system that taught us the hard way. Oh, nothing in this world that has of any value comes without hard work, suffering, struggle. Nothing is worth it unless you put in the work. I mean, these are old things that our parents and their grandparents and, you know, going back have said. I remember little things like hearing that, you know, nothing ever comes without hard work. Who came up with this shit? And don't even talk to me about Murphy's Law, because all that stuff's made up too. That was an easy scapegoat instead of taking personal responsibility and accountability for our own mindset, our own thoughts. Because our thoughts become our words, manifest into our reality. That's what's real, is how powerful we are as manifestors. That where attention goes, energy flows, and repetition is the key to mastery. So the more you're exposed to the things you dislike, dissing your true inner guidance system, you put yourself in situations with people, places, things that are out of alignment. They're not aligned with your heart and soul. We become the sum of the 5 people we hang out with the most. So why would we subject ourselves or place ourselves in situations around people, places, or things that would only butt up against us? Why are we such gluttons for punishment? Some might call that codependency. And because sometimes misery loves company, so maybe you're still stuck in the misery, or you're enabling someone else's misery just by being in their presence. And by virtue of being in their presence, you are also attracting that energy into your field, and it's influencing you as well. You know, they say it is contagious, right? So when you are around a certain type of energy, a certain vibration, unless you're extremely strong and you're able to influence and uplift the vibration in others, you may be that person who's extremely strong and able to pull someone down just as equally. But we influence one another through our energy, our vibration, our thoughts, actions, words, deeds. It's all connected. But how accountable and personally responsible are we for that? This is why it's so important. Meditation is key to knowing thyself, knowing thy mind, getting to understand, understand, and overstand the record player on repeat in your mind. You know, the deeper the groove, the harder to move. Habits, addiction, behaviors, patterns. We are no different than the record player that's playing on repeat, that are thought forms. Because what are thoughts? They are the words, the visuals. Even really attaching our 5 senses to it applies, because a lot of times it's a visceral thing. We will literally feel something when we think about it, because that again shows how deep that groove is and how easy it is to influence you, that it is still there, because we are the sum of our continuous thoughts, aka BS, belief systems. So when that sharp needle goes around and around and around and on repeat in your mind, if you're unaware of it, it's unconsciously driving you. It is the master of you, which is why I like to say, slow it down. If you can master your breath, that will slow you down long enough to go. When you're in meditation, you get really intimate with the breath. You breathe in, you feel it in, you expand, you expand out. It opens up, it affects, and it enters all of the cells of your being. And on the exhale, you contract and you expel that breath. Every inhalation, every exhalation, you expand or you contract. But in between, there's a pause. In that space is also the lingering, the ruminating, the thoughts. And we have to be mindful. So mindfulness comes with slowing down, which is what the purpose of the breath is. When you're focused on the breath, you can recognize, there goes a thought. Even if it's something like, here's the things I need to do today. It gives you awareness into what is really underlying the surface. And you will start to notice over time, if you make it a practice, that there is a repeated thought that continues to go on and on and on in your own mind. But how few are actually willing, able to sit down and give themselves permission to be in the awareness, be in the presence of their own thoughts. Mostly because we have self-deprecating, self-sabotaging. It's not in alignment with what it is we desire, but maybe the thoughts are actually negative, but you never confront them. If you don't confront them, how can you change them? How can you shift them? How can you have the dialogue, the inner dialogue, and the awareness that, oh, I want this, but my inner dialogue is saying, how dare you? You're not worthy. What makes you think you can get that? So like we have promoting thoughts, but then we have demoting thoughts, and they're fighting against each other back in the unconscious, subconscious of our mind. So when you slow it down, you breathe and you're present, then you become aware of those thoughts. This is that transition from mastering the breath into mastering the mind. The more you are in awareness of the mind, you can also start to master your life and master your domain, your existence, your whole purpose for being. But first you have to get to the root. Just like anything, you're aware there's an issue, but how willing are you to dive deep down into your own personal rabbit hole? If we're wanting to get to know thyself better, the intimacy, the into me I see, we want to have relationships with other people, but how intimate are we with ourselves? You cannot relate to another until you learn to deeply connect with yourself. And life is all about relationship. I cannot experience myself by myself. I can sit here and I can speak to this device, but I am not really engaged in experiencing myself unless I have someone to reflect back, to have a dialogue with, to see their facial expressions, to actually engage with my five senses, the smells around me, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, what I'm smelling, what I'm tasting, and what I can touch and feel. The five senses are how we take in data and information. And then you bring other people into the equation, and now we're talking more, because now we're talking in the energy, the vibration, the frequency, that which is what all of creation is all about. And so with relationship, we learn about ourselves through the eyes of another, through the way they interact with us, how they reflect back to us, how we project onto them and they project back to us. We are mirrors for one another, reflecting and bouncing back and forth. That's a collective collaboration. That is what we are here to do and be. And actually, that is interdependence, not independence. Independence, anybody can be independent or think they are. But the reality is, we're here for interdependence because it is a collective collaboration. We ultimately cannot do this alone. Even if you go based on the oneness theory of, oh, we're all just, iterations of the one source, all that is, that you are me and I am you in a different version, different form, but yet we're unique and different from one another. We can say that, but we cannot do it alone. And we're not. Even when you think you're doing it alone, you're really not. So there's the paradox, there's the duality, there's the contrast. Then there's always going to be conflict as a result, because con means with. And etymology and words and language has energy. There's a blueprint, imprint, vibration, frequency, frequent keys. We're here to unlock each other's codes, ciphers, trying to put things back together, trying to remember, each of us being members, reconnecting, remembering our source, our everything, all of it. So again, how can you shift or change something that you sense, five senses, is not quite in alignment? How can you shift your reality if you're unwilling to go to the root source. That when you notice an emotion, you notice a trigger, as we call it, a charge, something that gets under your skin, as we say, that's your work to do. But if all you do is identify with the external, oh, you did this to me, now you've separated yourself from yourself. You are projecting and rejecting yourself. You're not taking personal accountability or responsibility by putting it on another. They're just a catalyst. And because we need one another for that reflection, they're serving you in redirection back to you. So rejection is just redirection. What feels like someone getting under your skin is them just being the catalyst for you to go under your own skin and go, hey, what is this really about? Why does this bother me so much? What in me is still unresolved? What have I rejected in myself that maybe that person made me feel rejected? Whatever terminology, languaging you use, that you point a finger out, you got 3 back at you, baby. This is a loaded gun when you're pointing and blaming and shaming. And believe it or not, your cells in your body don't know the difference between you pointing the finger out or the 3 pointing back. In fact, the 3 pointing back amplify that when you think you're blaming or placing the responsibility outside of yourself, you're really just enhancing it like the boomerang that it is. You're 3 timesing it. It's coming back at you. It's your past, your present, and your future. You've been there, you've done that. You wouldn't spot it if you didn't got it. Just saying. That the reality is what that person is showing you is an aspect of yourself that you, yourself, are unaccepting of within you. So if somebody shows you bad behavior, that bad behavior exists in you or you wouldn't recognize it. And so there is this need for compassion that has to start from within. And if you haven't learned to have compassion with yourself, it's going to be very challenging to extend the olive branch, to extend the compassion to that other person. Now, I'm not saying every single person deserves your forgiven or you deserve to be in my life just because I feel bad for you. In fact, that's where discernment comes in. You have to also learn to discern what deserves your energy, your sacred energy, and access to you and the space around you. Because if that person doesn't uplift you and they just put you down or take you down, then you have to learn to discern to also stand in your own alignment and power and recognize what it is in you that you attracted that. What do you still have to work on within you? It could be just a simple reminder to boundary up. When to say no. No is not a bad word. In fact, it takes a lot of courage to say no to another, which in essence is yes for you. So sometimes you are going to have to be independent of individuals who do not reciprocate interdependence. Because as humans in relationship, we are meant to be interdependent upon one another. But if there is no receptivity, that means that other person has not yet reached their full potential in being able to give back what they receive. And this is where the discernment is so important, is you have to recognize that in yourself, where maybe you withhold giving back to someone who is given to you. There's a little saying that I say, if someone has extended and done good favor, it is good behavior to return and reinforce their behavior towards you. Because if they have done something for you in such a way that it supported you, and you haven't reinforced it, even a simple thank you, but given back as an offering of appreciation and gratitude. Because there has to be this dance of energies. If you're only pouring out or only taking in, then there's an imbalance in the energetic receptivity. And that is the true nature of interdependence. I'm gonna tongue tie that. Interdependence is where we recognize the giving and the receiving does not require effort or resistance or butting up against someone. It is a fluid flow, an interplay, because this life, this game is a play. Interdependence is an interplay. It is a dance of our energies. We're supposed to be receptive and fluid and moving and flowing and just receiving and giving in such a way that it really does reinforce, uplift, and keep bringing us up in levels of energy and vibration and frequency. But when we withhold, now we're creating resistance, and that's a heavy energy. And it only serves to bring you down instead of raise you up, which means you can't do it for another. And so you have to learn thyself, know thyself, and stand in your integrity, taking personal accountability and responsibility for your energy, recognizing your thoughts and acknowledging them, that the mind uses those thoughts to create stories. And what are stories? Because the mind is there, it's a builder. And the ego needs to feel like it has a job. It has to have a purpose. So if all it's doing is looking for worst case scenarios, it's going to find them. So it's a shift of the, flipping of the switch on the ego and the mind to also give it a task that is best case serving. Because as we look through our education system, think about this. Like, this is not rocket science. Most of us don't even realize that the education indoctrination system we were raised in trained us to always do things the hard way, turning it into expecting life to be so hard. And then what happened? How many of you out there realized your life was a struggle? There was a lot of pain. When did you decide that was the way it was supposed to be? I don't recall thinking it should ever be that way when I was a child. But there was a lot of butting up against, a lot of resistance, a lot of fighting, a lot of conflict in my childhood. And I acknowledge that. I'm like, wow. It was because I didn't feel like I had control over myself, and that I felt others were trying to control me. And so therefore, couldn't wait to get older. How many of us were like, hey, I can't wait to get older so I can just be so I can just go play when I want to play. And then you forgot about the play part. You became an adult, and all of a sudden now you're like, I got control over my life, and you forgot about the play. You forgot about the play and the joy that comes with that. So it isn't meant to be hard. It's just how we were programmed. I mean, why were we problem-based, problem-focused versus solution-oriented? Had we been raised like the Japanese, where they do things the easy way, mathematics is a great example. You go look up a YouTube and how they do it with the little lines and stuff. It's like, how come I didn't learn that when I was in school? Why did it have to be show your work, show the hard way, the long way, when you might have I just figured it out. I just felt like I knew the answer. But you're telling me I didn't get the points because I didn't do it the hard way? That's mindfuckery. So I'm watching the electric wire, and I think there's a squirrel on it because I'm like, ooh, that's moving. So, squirrel. So it's really mindfuckery. This is black magic sorcery, utilizing the languaging to entrain you into being a good worker that applies to the system that they want you to be under. So we have literally been cast spells using black magic sorcery and legalese, so that the words we use, we don't even know the true meanings unless you start looking up in dictionaries and going, oh my gosh, that's not what I thought it was. What does it say in Black Law's dictionary? What does it say in Barrington's or any of these libraries? I grew up with my mom saying, if you don't know the meaning of a word, look it up. I got several I have several dictionaries that my mom over the years would send me. So it's important. Don't assume you know the answer. Don't assume you know what a word means. Because believe it or not, you don't want to be a citizen, person, or resident. Why? Go look up the words. A person can be an entity, a corporation. It's really applicable only in contract law, maritime admiralty law. And these little things are what have tripped up so many people, that they get angry at the system, they get mad at the system, but they don't know the rules of their game. And if you don't have the rules, how can you play? If anything, you're creating your hard because you're getting mad and trying to fight against something you don't even know what you're dealing with. This is where people feel depleted and defeated. But that's where you have to learn. You have to dismantle, you have to reverse engineer and take their terminology and use it to your advantage and against them. Because they've been doing it to us since we were born. I mean, literally born, birthing. Birthing. A doctor is a doctender. I mean, just looking up those words today, I'm reminded that, you ever hear somebody says it was doctored? It was falsified. It was manipulated. But yet people, remember our ancestors used to call doctors quacks. I remember it. That's a very common terminology. So let's go back to this though. Not seeing the solution and always looking for the problem creates the hard energetically, and it wears on you. It ages you, literally. When it's about tapping into your own truth and learning to trust yourself and shut out the external noise, because everything you need is within you. All that other stuff is just there to distract you from your truth, from your knowing, your gnosis. Not knowing mentally, but knowing embodiment. Like it's in every cell of your being. And it is passed on through lineages, passed on through the ancestors. Yes, we have a lot of cellular memory of their trauma too. So have you ever noticed how easily influenced and suggestible you are by that noise? That's where we need to shut it out. Don't get caught up in the noise of the world outside of yourself, because that's what takes you out of yourself. Literally, they take you out. And by this noise, it's where you can't even hear your own intuitive soul's voice, which is what you ultimately should be listening to. You know, that gut feeling, like I felt like something was off. Yeah, that's what that is. That is your intuitive spidey sense that says, listen, feel. Again, the 5 senses. Something's off. Hey, Michael. Happy 4th. Happy Independence. So like the education was set up deliberately so that we would anticipate life to be hard. By life being hard, it keeps us focused and distracted by problems, sometimes problems that aren't even problems, because we don't see the solution. But when you're solution oriented, there are no problems. Everything works itself out because you're already going along and seeing and feeling and being in the solution, because you are the solution. All that other stuff is literally mindfuckery through the languaging, through the Babylon. Think about this. Babel, you know, the story of Babylon, where they were creating the tower, and then all of a sudden nobody could understand each other because they were babbling on in other languages. This is part of the problem. This separation, this divide. We are getting to a point right now, from my personal observation, to where it doesn't even matter what language you speak. You can see it, you can feel it, you know it. You physiologically, every single one of us, doesn't matter what language you speak, we're all looking at each other like, yeah, there's something fucked up right now. There's something wrong with what's going on. And it doesn't resonate. It doesn't align with my being. You just know it. Whether you can articulate it or not is usually irrelevant. But you need to follow the whispers of your heart and your soul. You have to be willing to trust within, or you'll go without. to the distractions, to what some people might claim, oh my gosh, but don't you see what's going on in the world? That's not your shit. There's a lot of stuff made up out there. I am not saying any of it is true or false, because I would prefer to know, not based on the media, and now we've got technology that can create all sorts of stuff that doesn't exist. Clones, robots, we don't know, just saying. So everything is simply mindset, belief system, and we have to call our own BS out, as well as when something doesn't resonate and you see it, and you just trust it. Learn to trust it. Stop dismissing your own ability to recognize, especially people who've been through trauma. A lot of times you're going to recognize it more because you've been through it and it feels familiar. And then there are some people who won't. They'll think everything is a threat. And that, again, is going back to a trigger, a charge, an emotional upheaval is showing you where you still have unresolved issues and traumas and stories that need to be addressed. Don't just dismiss it. Don't point a finger out. Don't blame or shame anyone, especially yourself. But be willing to go, my gosh, there is something in this. And get excited. You know why? Because without the catalyst, without that charge, without that awareness that something's not right, that something feels off, you would be in the dark. Okay, so you have a catalyst. It is triggering your emotion, but it also, at a deeper level, is bringing up the fact of your intuition, the into me I see, that it exists. Because if it wasn't for the emotion, how would you know intuitively that something was off? It's a guidance system. Your body is always telling. It's always directing and guiding you. It's always telling on the mind. So there may be a truth in your mind and your body's saying, yeah, that's true. Or maybe a belief system that's really not aligned with you. And the body clenches up because it's not true. In your mind, it might feel like it's true, but in your body, it says, no, it's not. You're creating a story. But it's about learning to discern and acknowledge what parts of that are yours and what parts of those need to also be addressed, and shift has to happen. So like little things, for example, years ago, I was in the military. I know my dad had a restaurant, so I was used to going to places and asking for things that weren't on the menu. And I had this one friend, we had been stationed in Korea together. We were in the UK and we went for Chinese food, and I knew what I wanted. See, that's the thing about life. Not everybody knows what they want. They know what they don't want, and by process of elimination can go through a menu and say, nope, 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 nope. Whereas when you are, that's problem oriented. But when you know, that's solution oriented. That's like, I know what I'm looking for. So I'm like, okay, I know what I want. Do you happen to have? Instead of even looking at the menu, because if it can save me the trouble of trying to figure out what it could be. And my friend was like, what is it with you that you can't just order something simple off the menu? And I looked at him like, what's so simple about the menu if I already know what I want? That cuts straight through. There's no superfluous, there's no beating around the bush. That's, hey, I know what I want. Can you accommodate this? And I get a no, I go for the next thing. But somebody who claims they are limited to the menu are revealing that they think that's all they have for choices. This is the kind of shift in awareness, and in order to make your life better, you have to recognize you are not limited to a menu or a box, but you may have in some way, through your conditioning, your education, your family, your exposure, the environment that you grew up in, have been taught to think that's all there is. So the question will always go back to, when did you decide that you were so limited? Versus, when did you decide that you had infinite possibilities? Because we want to move toward that which brings us more, and we get to experience more about life, versus all the things that were limiting in our life in the past. Yeah, a lot of us have had some experiences that were painful, struggles, like I said in the beginning, I mean, this is how I arrived to where I am today, is seeing that, wow, I was always looking for the negative. I was looking for the problems. I could spot the problems with no problem. I was certain of it. So when someone says, I just have a problem with such and such, it's like, yeah, you have a problem because you just stated it. Most people don't hear their own words or their own thoughts so deeply that there's information there that they can learn from, and they can learn to discern and deconstruct it and reconstruct it in the story that they want versus stuck in their shit, right? That's the first key, is being in awareness of the programming. That's what meditation, slowing down, having a mindfulness practice is all about. So when someone says, oh, I can't meditate, you're saying, I'm unwilling to sit down and listen. Even though meditation is not always silent, it's very rare that it will be. Writing down little notes and snippets off to the side, like, wow, I didn't realize I had so much stuff going on in my own mind. But if you don't know about that, then that's just a silent driver that you are the victim of, that is mastering you instead of you mastering it. We have to be willing to take accountability and responsibility for the thoughts that we think, the words that we speak, the actions we take, because that's on us. Yeah, we got stuff that happened in the past, but we can't change, because you can't change the. Actually, I take that back. You can change the past, and I do it. It's about changing the story you tell about the past, because the stories you tell reinforce the spell that was cast on you from the start, whether it's coming from the inside or the outside. But those first years, our formative years, are when we are influenced the most from the external, because we're just in survival mode. We are still trying to get our needs met without recognizing that there's a program that was installed in us. How can we change that program? How can we do better? Oh, that's right. When you know better. When you know better, you can do better. Maya Angelou. And ultimately, when you do know better, you have a moral obligation to yourself to do better. But only you're going to know when you do better and when you don't. And it's not a shame game. It's not a blame game. It is a just do better. Just be a good human. When you make what you think is a perceived mistake, remember, it's just a choice, and you could change. So there's never a mistake. There's always another choice. So with that said, my mom, when I was a child, when I was still in school, back when the sticky notes first came out, those little yellow stickies, she wrote down on a little sticky note, she said, don't look where you don't want to go. And she crossed out the don't. And all it said was, look where you want to go. This is the difference between problem-oriented and solution-focused. Is, do you always have a don't in your languaging? When you have a don't in there, you need to reframe the thought, the words, and the story that you tell. Otherwise, no matter what, you are casting and reinforcing your own spell. It's up to you to choose better, do better, and then you can be better. But always going back to the root source, to the cause. You know, it's just like Band-Aids. You could put a Band-Aid on something, but are you really healing or bringing wholeness and health to whatever it is you're covering up with the Band-Aid? A lot of times you don't need to put a Band-Aid on anything because it'll heal itself if you allow it, if you accept it as it is, as opposed to make it something it's not. Nature nurtures. Your own body will repair itself. You don't even have to really think about it. But on this crazy human plane, there's this idea that the body is not perfect. The body needs help. The body should have all these things done to it. And ultimately, that's a bunch of BS. Belief systems. Don't buy into them. They're probably not yours to begin with. So going back to like what you're taking in nurtures you, because nature nurtures, right? And I was having a conversation earlier around how most people don't recognize that the root cause of all disease is lack of oxygen which also comes in the form of dehydration and inflammation. When you are dehydrated, because even if you're drinking plenty of water, you think you're drinking water, it's not necessarily absorbing into your body, that your cells aren't receiving the delivery of the hydration. You're drinking dead water. It's unstructured. It's coming through all the pipes and all the chemicals and all the things that they do to it before it even reaches you through the faucet or wherever it is you get your water. Unless you're getting it from a natural spring source without any pipes, you're getting dead water ultimately. And so there's so many devices out there. I have a hydrogen machine. I know this. Hydrogen is one of the elements that combines the oxygen and the water. Hydrogen is part of the absorption of the oxygen, also through the water system. So if you are feeling you're inflamed, that you're dehydrated if you're inflamed, because the body needs hydration to also continue its healing repair. I was out in Arizona, my fingers, I was drinking a lot of good quality water too, by the way, and I'm pretty healthy. I do my breath work. I'm a huge component. I teach breath work. I'm a huge proponent. If you're having issues of anything in your body, the breath work will will oxygenate you. We need to do more breath work. I love breath of fire. Just saying. Do that for a couple minutes every morning. And that's also waking up the brain, because most people don't realize your brain is the first thing that gets depleted. And also, what's the word I'm looking for? The brain needs oxygen. Why am I tired? Why am I, having trouble functioning? Because your brain is depleted of oxygen. And then that affects the rest of your body. So we need more oxygen. We need more hydration. The inflammation. I'm out in Arizona. I'm doing a couple hikes with a friend of mine. And I'm like, wow, I was seeing my fingers swelling up. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. I also got to reunite with my sister, and I could see same scenario. We need to pay attention to our body, because the body has wisdom, and it's always telling on you, telling you what you need to know. If you listen, tap into your body's wisdom, because it will tell you what it needs. If you're having labored breath, it's most likely because you need to open up your heart and your lungs and expand. This is one of the things I was doing, walking around. I was like, put my arms up so that it could get the inflammation down on my hands. But anybody can tell you this. You just have to do it for yourself. Try it. It doesn't hurt anything. Experience is the best teacher. Because most people don't want to hear what somebody else tells them, especially if they think that someone's trying to tell them what to do and trying to control them, which is 9 times out of 10, that's normally not the case. Because so many of us are like, I want to help people. I want to be, I want to fix people. It's like, wow, I'll tell you a little secret. It's none of our business. We're not here to help or fix people. And especially because most of the times, that's usually a distraction from doing our own shit that we need to do for ourselves. If someone is willing and open to receiving it, that's one thing. But be really cautious and discerning of whether a person wants your advice, wants to hear what you have to say, is even interested in change or being fixed or helped. Because you can say you love somebody, but the moment you start trying to fix or change them, that's not love. That's conditional. That's you trying to fix your external environment to make you feel comfortable in your own discomfort in your internal world. That's a projection. So it's very much look in the mirror. You think you're going to fix or help somebody, or somebody needs to change for you. If you go demanding that somebody needs to change, you better go look in the mirror and figure it out. What is it about that person that I'm unable to accept? That's not love. Love is not like that. And I'm not saying you have to accept everything and put up with it or tolerate it. Because if you have to insist that someone changes for you, then it's probably a relationship that maybe you want to reconsider. Just a little suggestion. You do what you're going to do. But when you look in the mirror and you realize somebody doesn't fulfill or isn't meeting up to your expectations, which is an attachment, which is an addiction in itself. People feel like, oh, they have to be this, if they don't check off these boxes. Okay, but are you checking off those boxes? Because sometimes those people are just showing you what it is you don't like about yourself. The more you're willing to accept it within yourself, the less it's going to get under your skin by anybody else. And of course, that depends on where you're at in your life and how that might apply to you, because there's different scenarios in all of that too. So again, we are just like computers, except for we're taking in data through our 5 senses. And when we're taking in that data, we're also similarly, just like the 5 senses, what constitutes an addiction, a habit, a repetition, something that we tend to gravitate toward, is satisfying 3 of the basic human needs. There are 5 basic human needs. They can be promoting or demoting depending on how the needs are met. And you also have to check into the psychology of how we're infiltrated through our 5 senses. If you want to change a habit, all you have to do is change something in your environment. It could be where you go, the people you surround yourself. It might mean that you have to have a little discomfort, because growth only happens outside your comfort zone. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, well, we call that the definition of crazy, insanity, and also karma. So unless you're willing to make a change, nothing's going to change. See how that works? Change affects change. Repetition is the key to mastery. So if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, all you're doing is mastering it. You're not affecting any change. Unless that repetition is something you have changed in yourself that you are reinstating as a new habit, as a new routine, a new behavior, a new pattern. So that your awareness that repetition is the key to mastery, it's everything from what you're doing to also how you're influenced by hearing and seeing in your environment. If you are continuously around someone who is negative, being around that over time, you will start to catch yourself picking up on it. I hear people say, I'm with a narcissist. Okay, you're complaining about it, but you're exposing yourself to it. If you are around a narcissist, don't you think if you stick around them long enough, you'll start to act like them too? You can say you're the victim, but you also have to own and take personal accountability and responsibility for the choice of staying there rather than changing. I speak from personal experience because I was in a narcissistic relationship for 2+ years, and it took me calling someone in to be able to get that person out of my life. Sometimes it takes more than just you by yourself. Like I said, life is a collective collaboration. You want to make change, sometimes it takes those uncomfortable situations to stir you up, to affect you, to get in the movement, in the momentum of change. And the last thing we want is to become like that which we were exposed to and how we were treated. You may want a really wonderful person in your life, but if you're not being a wonderful person, how are you going to attract that? We attract where we're at. We attract the way we behave. We attract ourselves. That's the energy, vibration, frequency. We ripple out and it brings it back. So, the sensory system is so powerful. Being aware of your surroundings, but also knowing your internals. Now you got both things covered. If you're really tuned in, you got, oh yeah, I know my most recurrent thought, the thing you think about the most, if you know what that is. And then you look around yourself. Is that reflecting in my outer world? I keep thinking this. Is it showing up to support me on the external? And if it isn't, well, maybe there is something below the surface that is also keeping you from attaining it because you don't believe it. So like life is a game of balance. Are we playing full in, or are we, holding back? And I say holding back in the sense of you're the only one who can hold yourself back from attaining what it is you claim you want or desire. I say this from personal experience. That's all I know. And nobody should ever tell you anything that they themselves have no personal experience, because that is also accountability. The people that you want to learn from, you want to be exposed to, you want to be or have in your circle of friends, those people that you want to uplift you and support you, have to be the same people who demonstrate to you that they're doing what it is you want to do. Just like if you want to do something and you tell a friend, be very selective about this friend that you share that with, because maybe secretly they don't want you to get or attain what it is you share with them. And they could be, throwing daggers your way only because if you get that, then it reflects on them in some way. But you don't know the story, so don't create another story for them either. You want people who will raise you up and not try to take you down. And you also want to raise others up and not take them down. Because that's the worst thing you can do, because it does it to you too. Whatever you do unto another, you break your own heart if it is lower in the vibration. That pointing a finger out and those 3 back at you, your body doesn't know the difference between you blaming and shaming another and it actually being you that you're doing it to. So you can accuse someone of something negative. You can talk shit about another person, but the reality is your body's listening as if you're talking about yourself. So when we talk about collective collaboration, if you can recognize, there's oneness in this, that the spells we cast with the stories we tell isn't just about others, but it's mostly about ourselves. Mindfulness goes a long way in changing your trajectory in life and recognizing how supportive you are and how supported you are. Are you supporting others? Are they reciprocating? Are you receiving? Are you open? Are you willing? Because you have to be just as receptive in receiving as giving, and as in giving as you are receiving. And only you know if you're doing more than the other, if you're receiving more or giving more. And you're the only one who can create the balance in your own life. It's taken me some years. I'm getting there. I'm still a recovering perfectionist. I don't have a problem with that, because I really do want the best for every single person. I know when I succeed, when I'm doing, I'm thriving, that affects everyone around me. I know that. I've seen it. That when I'm in a great relationship and that me and that other person are just, lovey-dovey, silly, goofy, all the things, that amplifies everything around me. Because the more happy you are in your relationships, it doesn't have to be a partner, but the more happy you are with the people in your circle, the more that will also enhance your happiness, your motivation, your courage to take action where you need to. The more supported you feel, the more supportive you'll be. And that is the interdependence. That is the interplay of life that we aspire and should strive to be. That's what we're here for. So when we talk independence or interdependence, we're really here for interdependence. The independence, the independence is singular. We're not here to be alone. And we are more supported than we realize. No matter what's going on in this crazy world we're living in. So the other thing I wanted to touch upon, because, when you really look around yourself, you're like, my food is poisoned. They're trying to stick me up with all sorts of shots and drugs that are legalized. And then on top of that, my water, it's got a bunch of poison in its stead. The air itself, the quality of the air is so depleted because of all the chemicals in it that our oxygen supply is cut off as well. Now, if you really look through technology and look over the course of history, they've been doing this modification stuff for a lot longer than we've been alive. Okay, I won't say we as in everybody, because I don't know when it started, but I know it was when the first world wars were happening. All of a sudden, we got this injection of technologies. And me being from a military background, I'm like, every time they've had an advancement in technology, people's bodies have been affected. It has created flu-like symptoms. Now think about that. What are flu-like symptoms? Congestion, difficulty to breathe, all the achiness in the body. It's a form of radiation poisoning. It's all technologically based. It is not coming from whatever. We don't give these things to each other. It has been what we've been exposed to, let's say. What has exposed itself to us, but it's a silent thing. Radars. When I was in the military, I had friends that worked in what we called SATCOM, satellite communications, radar sites, microwave environments. I worked in computers. Nobody ever stops to think about the technology that you're exposed to in the electromagnetic field disruption that it creates from your own personal frequency, your own personal imprint, your energetic vibration and frequency. You're affected by all of this to some degree. Some people have a stronger constitution than others. And it also depends on where you're living. It depends on what you're exposed to. If you're in a big city, you're probably going to get hit a lot harder because that's a lot denser of an environment and you feel more exhausted and depleted a lot quicker. Whereas if you're out in the country and in nature, I will tell you right now, when I was in Costa Rica, boy, did I feel connected again. That's when I had my prayer with the ancestors. I was like, I know you're there. And sure enough, shit happens when you're willing to be present and connect. And the connection has to start within. And I love being barefoot. And I was around waterfalls and rain and hummingbirds, and just, it was amazing. And I want more of that. I also love all of it. To me, there is no bad. It's just experience, because that's what we came here for, is this amazing, rich world of experience. You can easily get caught up in all the things going on out in the world, on the media that's channeling programs, that spell casting shit. You get caught up in that, it takes you out of your peace. Literally, it takes a piece of you as it disrupts your peace. It's your choice every time. Just own it. It's nothing wrong with saying, oh, I decided to be entertained for a little bit. But sometimes you got to shake it off and get it out of your system too. You have to reset, recharge, reignite, realign. This is what we are here for. We need tune-ups because we are energy, frequency, vibration. Literally, the healing modalities weren't healing. It was aligning. That we are never broken. We're whole. It's just in our minds, we think we're fragmented because we're not accepting of all of our parts. But when you recognize that you're not broken, that you can heal, that you have the power within you, we do have dampening technology, but that doesn't mean you can't reconnect to it and realign within. But that's tuning that out so you can tune this up. And it literally is a shift in your mindset that will shift your entire frequency and vibration and your energy. You can be in thrival mode or you can be in survival mode. If you tune it out, it will tune you up. But you have to turn off that external noise, because if you don't go within, you're going to go without, and they will hijack you every time. It's like I say, food isn't just what we eat, but it's what we take in through our five senses. Junk in, junk out. It's a common theme, and just this discussion around the importance of the types of food we nourish our bodies with, how that also relates to how we retain information. If you are sedating yourself, think about this. Wheat, it's grain brain, wheat belly. That's a book out there, right? who decided that grains was a healthy option for us? It had to be processed, and it's sedative. Like, you want to put someone in a zombie, highly suggestible state? Feed them grains. Fill them up with a empty calorie, non-sustaining, non-nourishing filler, because grains have no flavor unless you add flavor. Just like tofu too, right? Really? Who came up with this junk? These are what they called generally recognized as safe. GRAS. It's not necessarily food, but they'll call it food substance. And in a lot of cases, the food out there is cardboard. It might not say it, but it's a form of cardboard. Cellulose is another word they'll use in place of cardboard. So whether it's a junk food or a quality food, it all connects. If all you do is consume sedative junk foods, then all you will retain is junk information. So consider that. If you're putting something in your body, now I'm not saying, like you can't eat something that's processed, but in your awareness of that, you can also shift that vibration in it. For those of you out there that do energy healing and energy work or Reiki or what have you, you can charge your food, but it starts here. It always starts with your mindset. If you're reaching for the food because you're in a mood, you're just reinforcing the food, and the vibration recreates and reinforces the mood. It literally is a vicious cycle. If you think, oh, I shouldn't eat this food, and then you're still holding it and going, ugh, I'm shaming my food before I put it into my mouth, which is essentially going to reinforce the shame. And it'll reinforce the cycle, the addictive cycle of eating food that does not add value, does not nourish, because your mindset wasn't valuable and it wasn't uplifting. So whatever your mood, whatever the food, will reinforce the mood. But if this is mindfulness, this is you being in awareness and recognizing, oh my gosh, I have a negative thought pattern around this type of food. Well, when did you decide that food was something you should self-sabotage with? When did you decide that I'm in a shitty mood, so I'm going to eat that shitty food? Because if you're in a shitty mood, it's going to reinforce the shitty mood with the shitty food. You see how that works? And it really is that simple. Crazy is as crazy does. And you can still change that. It's all choice. If you see the food and you go, I'm in a shitty mood and I'm going to eat this shitty food, you can at least be like, you know what? I am in a shitty mood. Let me shift that. I'm going to eat this food because I know how much I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to appreciate this because in the moment, I'm needing something to soothe my mood. And it's literally a shift in your vibration. It's not, If you're getting those sensations in your body, I mean, I'm audibly saying it, but your body's like, you're feeling all the creakies, all the creepiness of it. You can shift it just by changing the way you're perceiving it, the story you're telling. Do you want to reinforce the spell or do you want to break it? Then change the story you tell. It's the only way you're going to change anything. Change affects change. Not doing the same thing over and over again. I'll keep saying that. So, Grain Brain Wheat Belly, check it out, book. Now, let's shift it. If you're consuming high quality foods, you have a higher chance of retaining information that's of high quality. Again, junk in, junk out. Quality in, quality out. It's not just the food, but again, it starts in the mind. It's what you think of it. It's the story you placed upon it. It's been imprinted by your belief system. It's not necessarily the food. It's where it started, the story you were telling. You're the one who creates the reality in your life. You create your story. And then, funny enough, a lot of people turn around and say, I am the victim of this story. And yet you are the director, you are the writer, producer, and you are the star of your story. Do you really want to be that victim? Or do you want to tell the story of being the victor? You can choose that too. You can share with people how you overcame the self-sabotage, how you just shifted and changed. because you chose to do that. Because again, choice is your superpower. It really is a power, a superpower. Now, the most processed and addictive foods are what they have stuck out in our little environment over here. You know, we're talking about poisons, right? That contribute to learning disorders and long-term health issues. I was thinking about this when I was conversing with my girlfriend. I said, you know, our generation, I was born in 1974. I didn't get the smallpox, whatever you want to call it. So I don't have that mark, but I remember growing up thinking, why do those people have those marks? Well, in certain places during certain years, they were giving them out. And I know I got a double dose of the schedule for going to school because I went to 3 different high schools, maybe 3 doses for all I know. And those are just different ways. It's like, where in man did we decide that this was necessary? Anyway, this is what we call, again, black magic sorcery. So it's ironic, as I was recalling and thinking about this, like, I mean, in my generation, we had McDonald's still, you know, the fast food places that were most common were McDonald's, Burger King. I don't remember what else there was. Those were like the 2 big ones. And then you had sodas. I used to love Dr. Pepper. I later found out that it had propylene glycol in it. You know what that is? That's industrial antifreeze. You put it in your car because it maintains the temperature. Fillers, poisons, chemicals. Why did they start putting chemicals in food, but to prolong them, to give them a longer shelf life so it'd shorten your life? And I went down the whole food plant-based lifestyle back in 2010 when I had my first reaction to, this is ironic, but gluten. And funny enough, my dad had a pizzeria sub shop. That's where I had a trauma during my childhood as well. But I also lived in northern Maine where they were spraying glyphosate on the fields. We'd have pools of green in the potato fields before they put down the potatoes. And then they used to let us go picking potatoes. They'd take us out of school for 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks or something like that. And we would go and pick potatoes and we get 50 cents a barrel. I don't know how many times I sat in those pools of green accidentally, and we didn't know. They were spraying that stuff from the skies as kids. We didn't know. This was in northern Maine. So glyphosate totally destroyed the gut microbes of most of us. Then on top of that, I was reminded recently, and I knew this before, that I was in the Air Force. And you know what they like to give us when we would have inflammation or pain? Motrin. My stepdad would constantly get Motrin prescribed by the VA. They love to give us vitamin M, as we used to call it, or ibuprofen. Ibuprofen is the worst thing, not just for the liver, but your gut lining. It completely destroys your gut lining. So here I was diagnosed with IBS as I was getting out of the Air Force in 2002. I've got IBS. What does that translate to? It means we don't know what's really wrong with you. We can't figure it out. So process of elimination, we're going to call it irritable bowel syndrome. But see, I would have preferred having, excuse the TMI, a little bit more diarrhea than the constipation, because my issue was my stomach inflaming with constipation, which is inflammation, which is dehydration. Because as I deduced and figured out in my own personal life was they'd say, oh, you need to take in more fiber. Bullshit. Fiber was the problem, especially with the grains. Oh, have a grain muffin. I mean, I thought I was doing all the right things. But as I looked back over the course of my history, of my body and everything I dealt with, there were traumas that were associated with things that were very deep in my unconscious, my subconscious, that I also was unaware of, that contributed, on top of which these other deliberate poisons in our food supply. And I'm like, wow, did I really want to be taking ibuprofen? No, but I'm having pain, so I assumed that the doctors had my best interest at heart. I was a good little doobie when I was a child. I liked the doctor. I thought the doctor liked me. I thought the doctor was there to take care of me. But you know, there's no money in health care. It's actually sick care. because they want you to be sick. Where did I write that? The entire industry is designed to make us sick and maintain that sickness. It was never intended for health care. Yeah. Yeah. It's soluble in water and has gotten into so much. Yeah, it's in everything. I mean, our water supply has been completely destroyed because it leaches into the earth. And years ago, when I was first learning about this back in 2008-9, about, there's a movie, my Reiki master teacher, when I was going through my Reiki master training, she gave me the documentary, The World According to Monsanto. And in that documentary, they said, even if they break it down to one millionth of a part, it would still take hundreds of years just to get rid of it. And they're selling it in big gallon jugs. And by the way, it was illegal in France and other countries in the EU, but yet I was on military bases and they were selling that shit. I had a friend who was spraying it. I'm like, I had just seen this. I went back to work for NATO and a friend of mine's out in his yard with the Roundup and I'm like, what are you doing? That's illegal in this country. And then it dawned on me that he got off the military base. Like, you figure that shit out. That's crazy. So antibiotic translates to against life. So the idea is that people are totally unaware that you're taking something that's against life. You're not promoting life, you're against it. And that's going to kill everything that is good. So throughout the course of my career, there was a lot of that, because they overprescribe it. And your body never fully recovers if you're constantly going from one to the next. And then they want you on a clear regimen of, concoction cocktail of who knows what. This is what we call legalized drug pushers. And then the word pharmakia. It's translated, because I was looking at this up earlier, I wanted to share this with somebody, and I said, it translates, pharmakia in Greek, means a healing or harmful medicine, a healing or poisonous herb, a drug, poisonous potion, magic potion, dye, raw material for physical or chemical processing. It's also translated to occult and pagan worship related to that. Interesting, huh? So the entire industry, like I was just saying, is designed to make us sick and to maintain that sickness. It's not about healthcare. Even the word doctor, like I said earlier, that's the doc tender. So when you're birthed, like a ship, duplicity in the languaging, there's more than one meaning and you need to learn. Just take a dictionary and look it up. Get a law dictionary and look up the words you think you know the meaning to. You will be appalled. You will be stunned. You're going to be like, how is that possible? Because you were taught one version of that word. You weren't given the whole story. I've talked about this in previous videos. If you only know the one translation of a word and you don't know the other one, then you're ill-informed. There's another way to say you're sick. You're ill-informed if you don't get the full truth, the full story, the full meaning. How can you effectively make an informed consent or educated guess or choice in your life if you only get half the meaning to a word? Again, you only get one part of the truth. You're not getting the full truth. That's misrepresentation. That's misinformed. That's a lie. Because if it's a half-truth, we call that a lie. So it's up to us. It is up to us to take accountability and responsibility and to unlearn and to discern and relearn the truth and the full meaning of everything. Don't just leave it off as, oh, I think it means this because that's what I was taught. Assumption, assuming, makes an ass out of you and me. And most of the times it's on you, not them. And this is the key. So don't forget, when someone doctors something, what they're doing is they modified it from the original, and that's known as manipulation or falsifying. So they're taking from the original form and changing it into something it wasn't to begin with. That's doctoring it. Again, lies upon lies. And they lie upon their lies. And physician, I learned this today. Did you know what physician means from the Old English? Leech. bloodsuckers. Parasite is another word for that too, right? That's some fucked up shit. But there's your black magic sorcery right there. If you don't know the full meaning and you just assume, again, you're going to make an ass out of you and not me. So when you define the real meaning of words, it truly opens your eyes to the whole scam system. And this is the reason why our ancestors called them quacks. I mean, once you wake up and you start looking all this stuff up, it's literally, you can't go back to sleep. And that's where so many people over the course of time have realized, wow, was it always like this? Were we really always codependent on a sick system? Or did something happen along the way? Was it ever good? It makes you wonder. I can't say one way or the other because I don't know either. Over the years when I was a little girl, my mother used to say all sorts of stuff. She was very, very aware. She knew something wasn't right. And she raised me and my sisters to always question things. Now, mind you, that got me in a lot of trouble growing up, but that doesn't mean it was a bad thing. In fact, it was probably a saving grace. Because wherever I met with resistance to my asking of the question, all that did was reveal the threat that I posed that the people didn't know the answer to the questions I asked. So they would get frustrated, and instead of having an answer for me or looking for an answer for me, they would see me as a troublemaker because it was revealing their inauthenticity and their inability to also seek out the truth for themselves. You see how that works? So when you meet up with somebody, and this is really prevalent in the world right now, especially with social media, because everybody has an opinion, if you know what I mean, it's like people will argue with you over things they have no clue because it angers them that they don't have the answer. And it's revealing that they don't know. And their ego wants to believe it knows. And it'll create a story. And you know, this is low vibration. Don't fall for it. Don't let someone take you out of your peace by taking a piece and getting under your skin, because ultimately they will challenge you. They will put you down, try to take you out, rather than have the dialogue. And all that's revealing is that person is unwilling to have a conversation. That also reveals they may not have the answer. So when you see people conflicted or confrontational, a lot of times it's covering up for their inability to recognize, I don't know. And they don't want to change what they think they know. And that is part of the awakening. That is a huge part of, sometimes you got to get angry to affect the change that needs to happen. And maybe someone turns around and they poke you, they provoke you, but that could be the catalyst that wakes you up and saves you. Because that's really what we're here to do. Sometimes it's just inspiration through your inspired living that changes someone's life. Wow, I saw you doing that. I thought, well, if they could do it, maybe I could do it too. That's how I personally want to leave my legacy and my mark, is you see my life and you say, how did she do it? I want some of that too. I'm not saying you got to try to take it from me. That's stupid stuff. That's low vibe. But I mean, like, I inspire you to aspire to what it is you want to do. Something I do inspires you because you like something about that. But ultimately, there's something different for you than there is for me. It's just an aspect of what you see in me. Also, it lives in you too. So really where we're at in the world is we really have to play again. Just like when we were little kids and we wanted to have autonomy. I have an adult trying to tell me I can't play, and I want to continue to play, and I can't wait to get to be an adult so I can choose, and nobody will tell me I can't do what I want to do, and I can do what I want to do. And then you became an adult. You forgot about the play part. You just figured it was going to be easy because all you'd have to do was play. And nobody told us what came with becoming an adult meant we had to play in the world that they were playing in, and they weren't playing. So, my belly's starting to rumble. Must have been a good video. I don't know. Often when I speak, and I know this because of how I was raised with my mother, I used to talk to my mom and I would share things with her. And in my speaking, I would hear my own words and I would hear the solutions to whatever problems I might have been discussing with her or reflecting upon with her, because she was my sounding board. And we all need that. Sometimes it's just ourselves. And it may feel lonely, but we're really not alone, because there's various versions of ourselves too. And that you can go look in the mirror and you can have a conversation, a one-on-one with yourself. I've done this. It actually is a beautiful thing when you're willing to open yourself up to it. But about 80% of what you say is really meant for you to hear as well. So everything I have shared with you has brought something up in me to remind me. And I hope that this video serves you and that you are reminding yourself it's not just about independence. It's about interdependence. That we are here for one another. Whether we want to believe it or not, we can't do it without each other. First, we have to go within to spread it out. Because if we don't go within, we will go without. And we're more highly suggestible by the outside world when we don't trust our inner world. And again, it really is about mindset. Slowing down, being present, because that's the gift of the now. And change is the only way you're going to make change in your own life. You want to change something, you have to be the first one to choose it. Don't let the external world force it upon you. I've experienced that plenty in my life, and I am in my era of ease and grace. And I allow myself the flow and the sacred space to reflect and be present as often as I possibly can. And hopefully be here more so that I can share that with you too. So much love. If you didn't get a chance, please click the like button, click the subscribe, click that little bell icon so you don't miss my videos. Algorithm isn't exactly so generous these days. I don't know. I don't know if it's because of what. Doesn't matter, but I just hope that I tickled you some. No, I'm here to uplift, support, inspire, and hopefully that empowers you to be the best version of you are meant to be. That ultimately, I am here to activate the supreme power within you to reign in your life. Because you are just as royal as you think those crazy folk are outside of you. We're the true royalty of this land. But you need to stand in that power. And I want to activate that in you. So much love from my heart to yours. Enjoy the rest of your delicious evening. Mwah.